January 1961. The Cold War power race between the US and the Soviet Union was gaining momentum. On January the 23rd, just 3 days after John F. Kennedy delivered his inaugural speech as the 35th President of the United States, one little-known event could have changed American history in the most catastrophic way imaginable. A B-52 bomber with 2 hydrogen bombs on board took off from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro, North Carolina. The aircraft was part of a strategic mission to have nuclear weapons in the air at all times, ready to launch 24 hours a day, so that if the Soviets did pull off an attack, there would be a guaranteed response. The aircraft flew in circles over the Atlantic coast. At the end of the second loop, after more than 10 hours of flight, it was due to be refueled by a tanker in mid-air, and that's when the trouble began.
The wing took stress and a fuel leak started. The boom operator spotted it, notified the pilot just like he should. They separated. And when the pilot contacted the command post, they recommended he go out to sea till he got things under control. He started out to sea and then he realized that in 3 minutes he'd lost 37,000 pounds of fuel, which is a huge amount. So he's got to get on the ground. By 10,000 feet, the pilot felt he could no longer control the aircraft. There were 8 on board, 6 got out, 2 went in with the aircraft.
Because the plane is disintegrating in the air, its fuselage opens up and the bombs fly out of the fuselage. They're meant to only go off when you really want them to go off. They have a number of safety systems in them. So one of the first ways in which this works, there's what's called a pull-out switch. This is just think of almost like a USB switch in the top of the bomb. One of these bombs, the pull-out switch pulls out correctly. The other bomb, it doesn't trigger that. So one of them just is falling straight down, doesn't know that it's falling out of a plane, isn't doing anything. The other one thinks that it's being dropped on a target. The parachute opens on the bomb that thinks it's going down. And it's going through like a list of checks. Am I at the right place? Have I hit the right speed? Am I for sure falling out of a plane? And it goes through every check on the list. And finally, it gets down to the last check before it detonates. And the last check is a little switch. It's very crude looking by modern standards. It's an electromechanical switch. And it can either be set to safe or to armed. And it's fortunately set to safe. And so it doesn't do anything else. It says, oh, I'm not supposed to actually blow up. Good to know. And it very delicately sets itself down in the mud, and it didn't go off. But that one switch is the only thing that kept it from going off. The other bomb, it didn't go through the checklist. It just flew down, terminal velocity, slams into the mud, does not detonate. When they pulled out the second bomb, and they only found parts of it, they were missing a big part of the second bomb, the one that went into the mud. They found that its safe switch had been actually set to arm. And apparently, according to the safety engineers, that particular switch, that safe armed switch, in many bombs could sort of be switched incorrectly.
The 2 Mark 39 bombs that fell free from the aircraft over Goldsboro had a yield of 3.8 megatons each. That's over 250 times more explosive than the bombs that had been dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Consequences of a detonation would be, to put it mildly, catastrophic. The blast could kill everyone and everything within a diameter of about 17 miles. Lethal fallout could be deposited over Washington, Philadelphia, as far north as New York City, putting millions of lives at risk. The bomb that slammed into the mud broke apart, and the dense uranium secondary subassembly penetrated more than 70 feet into the soggy ground. A recovery team failed to find it despite weeks of digging. It still lies buried in the field, where to this day farmers have to refrain from digging deeper than 5 feet. Accidents of this kind are classified by the military code broken arrows.
Broken arrows is a terminology from the US military that refers to accidents or unexpected events involving nuclear weapons or components. The US recognized officially 32 of these accidents between 1950 and 1980. I think it's notable to mention that a lot of these included bombers or fighters carrying nuclear weapons.
You can say, and the military would always say this sort of thing, look, we had this switch in place and the switch worked. What's the problem, right? There's going to be accidents, but that's why you plan around them. At the same time, many of the engineers would say, look, it was only one switch, and it was a switch that was not that reliable. In other instances, you don't want to get to the situation where only one switch is between you and that kind of catastrophe.
The known history of nuclear weapons contains quite a litany of false alarms, accidents, and near misses. And these are linked to technical malfunction, human fallibility, even natural events. And I don't think these are preventable. Research also suggests that we cannot underestimate the role of luck in explaining why accidental detonation has not taken place to date. And I think incidents like Goldsboro, in which one ready safe switch was the reason why there wasn't a nuclear detonation, really underscores this point.
All we know about these broken arrows relies heavily on American declassified files, as the US tends to be more transparent on that matter, but the number of incidents is likely to be underestimated. We have little insight from other countries with nuclear arsenals. There are currently 9 states possessing nuclear weapons, so the chances of such accidents having happened elsewhere are high. So just how close has the world come to nuclear disaster without us knowing? And can we always rely on a combination of safety measures and luck to prevent an accidental catastrophe? As then US Defense Secretary Robert McNamara put it in a 1963 declassified memo, it was only by the slightest margin of chance, literally the failure of 2 wires to cross, a nuclear explosion was averted.